evacuations, the situation in Israel and Gaza. Let's bring in our front bench. Joining us today, Bob Richardson, Senior Counsel at National Public Relations, former Ontario Liberal Chief of Staff. Melanie Paradis, she was the Communications Director for former Conservative leader Erin O'Toole, nowadays President of Texture Communications. Anne McGrath is with us, the National Director of the NDP, and CTV National News reporter Judy Trinh joining us. There's our front bench. Bob, I'm going to start with you. What's at stake here for Canada?
Oh, a lot, and I think the government has to move swiftly on this. I think they're on the right track. We've already got about 500 Canadians out of Ben Gurion on commercial flights into Athens. Lots more to do, but the embassy's working hard. The foreign minister's over there right now, which is appropriate, and she's met with a number of these people before they got on the plane. I think that they are doing the right things. It's a difficult situation. They're not in charge. But under the circumstances, I think that they're doing a good job. When you compare us with a number of other countries, Britain, the U.S., Australia, we certainly are doing relatively well in terms of getting our folks out. And that's what this is all about, is getting Canadians into safety. And I think that they're accomplishing that and doing a relatively good job of it.
Melanie Paradis, to you. The Trudeau government has been criticized by some for slow response time. Now the flights are getting in and out, which is good news. Your assessment?
I didn't expect that I'd be agreeing with Bob, but I think that it's important to give credit where it's due. They're doing a very good job getting Canadians out of Israel. And they've had 2 flights already, I understand, and there's more that are planned. This is ahead of the United States being able to get their citizens out as well. I think as they need to keep this up, obviously. I think they've learned their lesson from Afghanistan, where we saw people who were having to hold up, a red T-shirt, and they were waiting in ditches trying to get out. That was an absolute disaster. This time they're far more organized, and they're working in lockstep with the government in Israel to locate citizens and try to get people out. I hope that they keep that up. To Bob's point as well, I think that we need to ensure that we're working with Egypt to try to get a humanitarian border opened with Gaza. Egypt has not been participating to this point, and the reality is we aren't going to be able to get anyone out or humanitarian aid in if Egypt doesn't come to the table and play ball.
Yeah, and we should point out that we heard from Global Affairs earlier today that they are hoping there will be some kind of humanitarian corridor tomorrow, possibly out of Gaza into, as you're pointing out, Melanie, into Egypt at the Rafah border crossing, which is in the southern part of Gaza. To Anne McGrath, who's joining us from the NDP policy convention going on in Hamilton, and good to see you again. Your read on what you've been seeing?
Well, I would actually agree also with what both Bob and Melanie have said, that the number one job, obviously, for the Canadian government is to make sure that every Canadian that wants to leave is able to leave. And I do think some lessons have been learned around that. So I would have liked to have seen it a little bit faster, probably. But I think that they're on the job right now and they're getting people out. I think part of it has to do with a kind of a policy of not doing these evacuations when there are commercial flights available, but that needs to be reassessed, obviously. So I'm glad that they're doing this and that they're getting people out. I think Canada has another role to play, though, and that is as along with other countries, pushing to make sure that not only is there the humanitarian corridor out of Gaza, but also that there is a corridor for humanitarian assistance to get in, because at the moment, I think there's a massive humanitarian crisis developing there. And as you said, there's 2 million people living there. My understanding is that over half of them are children. So this is something that is absolutely urgent. I think that, the whole region is reeling, I think, right now. There are some obviously very bad actors at play. On both sides. Here in Canada, Jewish Canadians are reeling from what happened with the attack by Hamas, and Palestinian Canadians are reeling as well by what's happening in Gaza right now. So I think it's important for the Canadian government to make sure that they are taking a balanced approach and that they are ensuring that the response by Israel is consistent with international law.
To Judy Trinh, and Judy, the challenges that the government is facing to get this right, so to speak.
Todd, I want to point out specifics of diplomatic language that was used today. We've been talking about a humanitarian corridor. Of course, that means that citizens can safely get in and out through Egypt. Right now, what we are being told is that there is this small window. There are 150 Canadians right now trapped in Gaza, according to Global Affairs. And what we are being told is that there will be this window between 12 and 5 p.m. tomorrow. But Todd, Global Affairs officials were very careful not to use the term humanitarian corridor. Right now, the only reassurance they have, and this is very specific wording, the reassurance that they have is that there is communication conveyed to the embassy in Cairo from Egyptian government in coordination with the Israeli government. So that is far from a confirmation that this window will actually open and that Canadians will be able to leave Gaza safely. What Global Affairs has said, Todd, is that they are not going to ask Canadians to start moving to that Rafah border crossing until they get confirmation from the Egyptians and the Israelis that that Canadians are going to be let through. So for the past few days, Canadian embassy officials have been working with their counterparts in the Five Eyes, working with Egypt and working with Israel to get some type of reassurance. But this is far from a commitment. So it's important to point that out. You know, it is not, everyone wants a so-called humanitarian corridor, but that is not what's in place or what's being talked about at this point.
All right, back to you, Bob. The role Canada can play, we see Melanie Joly there. Some might say, you know, Canada is perhaps not a major player here. Your take on what can be done?
Well, the number one job for Canada is to make sure that our citizens get out safely and in a timely manner. That should be the focus of what Canada is, and we need to continue to do that. We need to continue to make sure that commercial flights can land in Ben Gurion and that we can get as many Canadians as required or want to out safely. So that's job number one. Job number two is to help any way we can, along with our allies, to create this corridor to make sure that things are safe for people to leave Gaza, and that's another priority of ours that I think that the government of Canada has to do. I'm very pleased that the foreign minister is there. She is meeting with her counterpart, and I think that's appropriate. And you know, I think we are pretty much doing everything we can at the moment. There's always some more that you could do, but as I said, we're not in charge. The Israelis are in charge. And we have to operate within that framework. And I think so far they've been doing a pretty good job.
Melanie, the Prime Minister has been very forceful, very strong in condemning Hamas, calling it a terrorist organization, and talking about all the things that Hamas has done, targeting its own people, targeting Israelis. Is there more that the Trudeau government could be doing from a foreign policy perspective? What do you think?
Well, Hamas absolutely is a terrorist organization. I'd go a step further and call them a death cult, because some of the atrocities that we have seen in the past week are beyond comprehension. And I want to take a moment to note that if there are parents watching at home who have young children or who have teenagers who are on social media, your kids may be seeing some really graphic images on social media right now coming out of Israel and Gaza. And it's really important that you talk to your kids about what they're seeing, because there's no context for it whatsoever. It's absolutely horrific. I think that the Prime Minister and that the Canadian government should be a lot stronger on anti-Semitism in Canada that we've seen. I'd love to see them take a stronger stance here against some of the outrageous statements that universities and that some unions have come out with in the past week that have been anti-Semitic, frankly, and appalling. I'd love to see them take a firmer stance on that, because this is a problem that we still have in our own country that we need to deal with. And it's not just happening in the Middle East. There are Jews in Canada who are afraid to go outside today, who are afraid to take their kids to school this week. And we need to be doing everything that we can to ensure that they know that they are safe here, that they are wanted here, and that they belong here now and forever. We're
going to have to leave the front bench there, but I want to thank all four of you for joining us: Judy Trinh, Anne McGrath, Melanie Paradis, and Bob Richardson. Much appreciated. Thanks for your time.